Hi, if you or your children are suffering because of your relationship with your ex partner, because it's stressed or strained, or maybe they're just not a nice person, this show is for you. Welcome to the High Conflict Co Parenting Podcast with Brooke Olson and Charlie Jewett. Enjoy another episode now.
Hey, everybody. Brooke Olson, Charlie Jewett from the High Conflict Co Parenting Podcast. Coming at you now with episode 7. Now, Brooke, what's episode 7? What are we talking about today?
What we're going to talk about today, Charlie, is knowing what you want and having strategies to get there.
So, ironically, I just came back from a conference in Rhode Island, and one of the speakers was talking about, how to accomplish the things you want in life. And he said the number one step to accomplishing your goals or accomplishing what you want is, surprisingly, know what you want. And my favorite part of his conversation was, or his talk was, he said basically the way our brains work, there's, it's like billions, millions or billions of inputs that are coming at us every day. And basically the brain is designed to ignore the ones, except for the ones that are associated with whatever goal we're trying to accomplish. And most people's goal is survival. So all they hear, all they pick up is just things related to how do I survive today. And so he was kind of encouraging us, in sort of a success and all that kind of stuff, just sort of pick what you want, aim at it, vision boards, all that kind of stuff. But in this world, your world, the parenting, doing a great job and dealing with a kind of difficult ex, sounds like knowing what you want's just as important, if not more.
Absolutely. One of the things that I find, to your very point about survival in this, is that people are being reactive to the terror of not knowing what's coming next. And having been dependent on some level of the relationship to meet their needs and those of their children to be able to survive. And when they leave the relationship or they're left in the relationship, from the relationship, they're sitting there not having a clue about what to do next. They're in overwhelm. Nobody is giving them suggestions. This comes back to some of our earlier conversations of not knowing how to do something because somebody didn't teach you how to do it. And you're left there with an attorney that's going, okay, you want your kids? Okay, we're going to go after the kids. You want some money? Okay, we're going to go after the money. And what else is it that you want? And you're sitting there going, well, I don't know. And one of the things that brought this particular subject up for me happened about 4 or 5 years ago, where I was sitting with a client who had been stuck in this high conflict cycle with the other parent for 5 years. I mean, this was just way too long to be hung up in this. And they were fighting over money. They were fighting over custody issues. And I posed this question: what is it that you want? And they looked at me with this blank stare of, what do you mean, what do I want? What do you want here? What do you need to move forward? And they couldn't answer the question. They were dumbfounded. So what I took them into is, okay, you're in this long, protracted fight. It's costing you tons of money, tons of resources, tons of anxiety to hang in here. And in order to extract yourself from this, you have to get an idea of what it is that is necessary for you to move on. I work with clients frequently, especially sometimes in high asset stuff, where they're ready to do battle for something that, if I look at it, I go, that's more battle than your life's worth moving on from. So what would it take for you to downscale to get out of this? And what they will do is go, well, I'm not willing to do that. I can't give that up. And I'll be working with them sometimes a year, 18 months later, 2 years later, and they're stuck in the same cycle, and I'm feeding them the same conversation, and they finally get it. It's like, oh, if I'd have only listened to this a year ago, 2 years ago, I'd be out of it by now. And I go, yeah, I hate to go to I told you so, but I told you so.
Yeah.
So dialing this back and going, okay, what do you need? What is it that your children need? And what are the basics for you to move forward out of this? How do you get from one place to the next? What is it that you are fighting for? Are you fighting for justice? Are you fighting for survival? Are you fighting for the imaginary piece of either one of those things? And what is real right now, and what can you really look at to help you get out and move forward?
So what, I mean, even in my life, I don't find it that easy to define what I want. Sounds simple, right? What do you want? Right. How do people know what they want? Is there an exercise they can go through or some, yeah, actually, let me say this first. Sometimes it's easier to say what you don't want, right?
Right.
And then pick the opposite and go well, now I know I want that, you know?
Yeah, but I don't know if that's effective here. What is it that I want? What is it that I want? I want to be comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What's the price of you trying to be comfortable here? What is comfortable? We all come from, most all of us come from a place of, we had to work hard. We had to accumulate even within the relationship, the things that we have. And there was a process that we had to go to get there. And when a relationship comes apart, when a marriage comes apart, there's this reality that the assets are now half of what they were. And if there were not a lot of assets, then there's half of not a lot of assets.
Yeah, exactly.
And our lifestyle is going to change. Now, do I want to fight for that person to fix that? Or am I going to take responsibility for that? I have this relationship with my children that has now changed. And it is going to go from me coming home to seeing these children every single day to not.
Yeah.
And if I'm the major breadwinner and my attorney's telling me that, well, unless you get 50% custody, you are going to be spending a lot of money in support, then the idea might be, well, I have to fight for 50% custody. When the reality is that you don't have the time for that given your job. And I'm now taking my need to not pay this person money versus what my children's needs are.
Right.
So to get your head around what it is that you can do in that custody arrangement that really serves your children in the best possible way. Because, if I've got 50-50 custody and I've got a job that I work 12 hours a day, then the nanny's picking them up and taking them and putting them in bed and doing the things, and I'm just showing up to show up. Or somebody else is taking care, where the other parent might be the better person to be able to take care of that. And then when I do have my children, that I'm fully available.
Yeah.
That I'm present for them. I'm helping them with their homework. I'm helping them learn the things that they need to learn to be high functioning adults when that time comes. And I'm instilling in them this idea that we talked about in our last podcast around secure attachment, that they know when I'm here, that I'm not off someplace else playing games with somebody else, that I am being a parent, that I am here for you. And that is part of what we're looking at in terms of determining what it is that I want, and not taking outside ideas that don't match what it is that is really the healthiest place for us to go. You know, I can think of one client that I've had in the past where it was a high asset. It was a high asset client, and they were used to a particular lifestyle, and they were used to their children having a particular lifestyle. And on our first meeting, I said, so my assessment in this is, if you choose to fight in this and go for what it is that you are looking for, that you're not going to get there. We were dealing with somebody that the other parent was a huge narcissist and came from a family of that ilk, and that they were going to starve out this person at all costs, even at the cost of their children. So I said, let's sit down and you tell me what your bottom line is for your need for the next 10 years. So you can get your children through high school, through college, and that you can be a successful individual moving forward. And they said, well, I need all of this. And I said, is that true? I mean, let's really look at what $1 million would do for you. If you invested that, if you put it into your business, if you did this, that, and the other thing, and where that would take you. And we walked through it, and they said, well, that could work. I mean, you know, that's not what I'm used to living on, but that could be, that seems like it could be done. I mean, I'd have to move out of where I'm at. I'd have to downscale. I'd have to do this, that, and the other thing. But yeah. And then they reverted into, but I have a right to have X, Y, and Z. This is how I've always been in the marriage. And this is what I want. Mm-hmm. And they proceeded to spend the next 2 years fighting for that, running up virtually a couple $100,000 worth of bills in attorney's fees just on their own side of it, dumping this, you know, out and not getting anywhere, being stuck in their lives. So part of this idea of determining what it is that I want is, do I want to fight or do I want my freedom?
Yeah.
What is it that I need, and can I move on? One of the things that drives a lot of the conflict is this notion of needing support. And child support, spousal support are things that are facts of life, and that in a perfect world, in a good world, that those are taken and given willingly because it's for the benefit of the children and things to move forward. But the reality is when we jump into high conflict, that's not the way it goes. And what ends up happening is everybody gets stuck. I can't tell you how many people that I've had that have had normalized relationships with the other parent where they decided that I wasn't going to ask for support, and everything went just looky-ploo. I mean, it was a stretch, it was a trouble, it was hard, but they managed. And the moment they went and said, this is too much, I have to get support, everything blew up and became a fight for years that the children had to navigate and to and cause the damage to the family to be extensive. So this idea of what is it that I want becomes a conversation of what is it that's important? What do I want and what is healthy? And to start to move away from this idea of, I want this to be just because, you know what? it probably wasn't just or mutual in the relationship to begin with. So we're back to this idea of I'm expecting something to be that never was, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to go into that victim role of not getting what it's supposed to be. And this is the piece that perpetuates it. So part, again, of coming into what is it that I want becomes a conversation of self-responsibility. How do I get there in a reasonable fashion, and what gets me out of this mess that I so desperately want out of? Because divorce can happen in a very short period of time, or it can take years. And if it takes years, I'm still stuck in the same fight that I was stuck in when I was in the marriage or when I was in the relationship, right?
Yeah.
So what do I want? I want out. Okay. If you want out, what is it going to take to get out? And to really analyze it. And part of this is the conversation that we've been having about the personality types and the historical reality of what has been taking place in the past. Because if we've been in an abusive relationship with a narcissistic person, they're going to try to bury us. They're going to try to destroy us. And if we keep fighting for something that gives them the impetus to fight with, their energy is endless, right?
Yeah.
So I want my life back. I want to be self-determinative in my life. I want to be able to make choices that are going to lead me to the self-actualization and self-fulfillment that I so desperately want. And that may mean that I have to go back to school. It may mean that I have to change jobs. It may mean that I need to work a couple of jobs. But the piece that I'm talking about here that gets people hooked in is that I am dependent on somebody else for that. And I am going to fight for them to do what is right.
Yeah.
And here I'm stuck.
There's something coming to mind here. You probably know my girlfriend and I just visited my brother and his two kids in Boston. And he was a Harvard professor, so he's got this really, really cool kids that were like raised on Harvard daycare. So they're just little geniuses. It's pretty fun.
Mm-hmm.
So we're in their home, and a fight breaks out between the 10-year-old boy and the 4-year-old boy. And I didn't see it, but my girlfriend was right in the middle of this and saw the whole thing. And as it turns out, the 10-year-old's very into gems. He had sort of a tripod amethyst, kind of 3 legs coming, off of this amethyst jewel. Was holding it. The 4-year-old came up, grabbed it, and the 10-year-old didn't like that he grabbed it, so he pulled it back, and it broke. Burst into tears, screaming at each other. It's just chaos, right? Like a 10-year-old and a 4-year-old would do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was beautiful. I really thought it was beautiful. 4 or 5 days later, my girlfriend says to me, I think I did that. So the 10-year-old's holding something, the 4-year-old comes up and grabs it and pulls it, and that's not right. That's wrong. You probably shouldn't have done that, right? It was self-centered, whatever. He didn't ask permission. But it broke when the 10-year-old pulled back, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my girlfriend saying that, I feel like I did that to my kids. I mean, we're looking at the other side. We're looking at all these things that we think the ex is doing wrong. But we can still hurt the kids if we pull back and the kids end up breaking. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's coming to mind. We're saying, what do I want? Because there's a difference between an attorney version of what are your rights and what do you want, or what's best, what's going to be least damaging to the children, right?
Right.
I mean, attorneys aren't parenting experts. They're legal professionals.
Right. And some of them, the good ones, will direct you into, if you do this, then that. This is the damage that you're going to do if you go in this direction. But that's not most attorneys' focus What their focus is what do you want? And I am going to fight for what you want. And if what you want is unrealistic, I'll tell you, just like I told this client of mine. But if you want to fight, let's go. We'll go digging for everything, and we will take forever to get there. And your life goes on hold, and so does that of your children. This particular person that I'm talking about, her children are just absolutely a chocolate mess. They are struggling in every aspect of their life, and they're acting out from it. They don't have either parent available for them to take care of their needs. And although this parent, is there to take them to school and do the other things, she is up in her her anxiety about what's going to happen next.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're stuck.
Mm.
And this is just one example. I mean, I've got several examples of the exact same thing across my practice. And, these things, interestingly enough, end up kind of where we said that we should go in the first place, because they get beat down or they come to the place of, God, I just want out. What would have happened if you had those 2 years back,
Mm-hmm.
or those 3 years back? How would that have looked for your children? How would that have looked for you in this new shining world where you are in control of what unfolds next, where you are responsible for what's taking place, and you're not dependent on somebody else to make it okay.
Mm.
And you're not looking for them to fix it or do the right thing, because frankly, they never did. Everything else that you were looking at was really an illusion, and it disappeared because it was an illusion.
Hmm. How much time and money do you think you could help someone save having a conversation with them as they're entering a high conflict divorce, let's say, right? Or do you feel like you could save somebody time or money if you had this conversation early on about, let's define what you want before you enter this battlefield?
Well, categorically, yes. And where I've had clients that have listened to that, we've been able to scoot through this, whether there was a fight or whether there wasn't. So when we look at, say we're going to go to court, say that this is inevitable, we're going to have some level of a fight. But when we show up with something that looks reasonable and attainable, and that we can move whoever's making these determinations to yes pretty quick, because it's clear that it's a reasonable request, then it's easy to get that yes. But when we're looking for something that is up against that line of contention, where we can't tell what's reasonable, what's not reasonable, and somebody can't lean into a yes, then we're going to be fighting for it for a while. So oftentimes I'll have, like I started this conversation with, I'll have a parent that is a primary breadwinner, mom or dad, and they're saying, things have changed here, and I want 50% custody. And my question is okay, what changed here? Are you more available for the kids to do that? Because if you are, I'm down. Let's go. Let's make that argument. Let's get there. But let's make that argument in a way that is clear that that is available. And if not, let's make an argument that says, okay, I'm willing to back away from that because I am fully available to do this,
Mm-hmm.
whether that's, one day a week and every other weekend, and we're splitting holidays and going down that road, then this makes sense. And it's easy to get a yes from somebody, because they can go, oh, you're really paying attention to the kids. You're really paying attention to what is important here, not just what you want. You're not coming to me out of your narcissism or out of your fear. You're coming to me out of what is reasonable.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And knowing what that is and not going to being a victim to this conversation, not going to that dualistic me or you, right or wrong, this or that, but coming into what is the best overall for everybody involved.
Because really it's a big form of negotiation, right? And if you're going to negotiate, you have to know what it is that you want or where you're going to start and what you'll be willing to settle for, right?
Right. And that negotiation starts internally long before you take that negotiation external for a solution.
Yeah.
What am I fighting for?
Yeah.
That's one of the most important questions that I ask my clients. What are you fighting for? I'm fighting for justice. Well, that's a moving target.
Yeah.
And what's justice? Well,
Yeah.
this is the right thing for them to do. Oh,
Who
did they
says?
do the right thing? No. Okay. You really want to continue to fight that? Because you disengaging from that is going to give your children the benefit of a life that is free from this conflict. And that is priceless.
Hmm.
What I find what people are fighting for, what they think that they want is something that has to do with the past. Excuse me, with the past, with the relationship as it was, and they want to balance that equation. That equation doesn't balance.
Hmm.
It didn't balance then, it's not going to balance into the future. So what's real? What's real here really gets to be a part of that exploration for the people that are listening to this.
Yeah. I think you remember this. There was a time when you were doing my mediation that you handed me the parenting plan. There was a piece of it that I didn't like. And I said, wait, I want more time with this child. Why can't I? Isn't this justice? Wouldn't it be fair for me to have whatever, more here or whatever? And your response really was a version of what's real here, right? Like, Charlie, look, this is mediation. We're talking about what we could get you each to both say yes to, right? And I do work full time, even though I have some control because I'm self-employed. But that, you want to be completely unrealistic. You take two parties that say, I want 100% custody of the kids and I want 100% assets. Well, nobody's going to get that, right?
Right.
And then you go, I want 50-50. Well, possibly. But if one person worked the entire time, the other person never worked, that may be a little squirrely, right?
Hmm?
So being realistic, looking at what's real here, what can you actually deliver? What could you actually do well? And what it is you actually want. That's kind of the starting point. That's the foundation, right?
Right. Right. And this notion of fair is a four-letter word. I mean, it's not something that you can actually hang a picture on. It's a variable. What's fair is a perspective.
It is so distracting. The anger, the when you say I want judgment, fairness, they're all such distractions.
Mhm.
Because even in a high conflict custody battle or divorce, the parents are still on the same side, trying to negotiate how to do what's best for the children. It's not me
What their
against them.
what their version of that is.
Yeah. And ultimately, it's not us against them. It's us for the kids. Even if the other party doesn't see it that way.
Right. Right. We were talking about this in class last night. You know, it's everybody in this arena is jockeying for control.
Yeah.
And everybody has control issues. It's not them, it's not you, it's everybody's got a control issue. And what is the basis for that control? What is it that you want to control? The safety of the children. Well, they are too, but they see you as the threat, whether you're a threat or not.
Yeah.
And you see them as a threat, whether they're a threat or not, because this is the perspective that you guys are coming to it from. And that's undeniable, whether it's real or imagined.
Yeah.
So, what do you want? And how do we get there?
Now, you mentioned your class, which I've taken all 9, probably more, and it's absolutely freaking incredible. People can attend your class through Skype or through Zoom. They don't have to be in California. Anybody who's listening can attend your class. True?
Absolutely. We've got people all over the country doing it. As a matter of fact, I've got an instructor training that's coming up at the end of October this year. And I've got somebody attending the instructor training from the UK. And yeah, so this stuff is deliverable via technology these days. You don't have to show up here in San Diego in my office.
What how do people tell you I want to be a part of this class, or like I'd like to show up via video conference and be getting this information with you?
Well, they can go to my website, highconflict.net, and they can read about what our classes are about, and they can go to the Find a Class page and see when our online classes are and when our local classes are. They're actually at the same time. And they can register for the class. When they register for the class, I'll contact them. We'll have a little chat about what's going on, make sure that the class is a fit, because if it's not, I don't want them to spend their time or their money, their resources to do it. And if it's a fit, we'll take payment for the class and we'll get them involved in it as quickly as they can, because these classes are ongoing. They don't start, they don't stop, they just keep rolling. So you come in where we're at in the material and you complete the class when you've completed the 9 classes.
Perfect. Well, anything else you want to say on this subject or a practical application?
Well, I think I again, just cycling back and recapping what we're talking about here, Charlie, is no matter where you're at in the process, to really stop and assess what is important to you, and not from a place of comfort, not from a place of need, not from a place of fairness, but from a place of what's important. And this is the children, right? And this is your life. We're not here for a long time. We're just here for a good time. We just have so much time on this planet, and we want to maximize that in learning about ourselves, teaching our children about themselves, giving us both a place to grow and be better human beings, to create a better environment for everybody on the planet to live in, to model something different, and to know that we're going to struggle here. And that's not a bad thing. The struggle in our life is a place of really learning about our resilience, about learning who we are and what we can do and to grow.
Brooke, people don't have to wait until Friday mornings to get more content. If this is something that's helpful for them, right? This isn't the first time you've broadcast anything or recorded anything or put anything out there in the world. What are the other ways people can get the help more aggressively or speed up their recovery process? What materials are available for people right now?
Well, I've written a book called The Black Hole of High Conflict, and it's available on Amazon and Kindle.
Great.
And everything that we're talking about is really compressed and put into there. So this is a really good starter place to get in and get your mind working and to see what these concepts are about and how to start to apply them. The other place that I think that is valuable is to go to our website and look at some of the blog articles that I've written. Those are available there as well. They go into some of these other arenas, and that's at www.highconflict.net. So the book, the website are also really good places to get the material. And also we have classes. We have high conflict diversion program classes that you can get into and get some one-on-one help with this as well.
And you know me, I'm aggressive. Whatever I want to become good at or learn, I find someone who's good at it and pay them and hire them and shorten my learning curve. What if somebody just wants your help? Somebody says, Brooke, has this information. He's good at something I'm not good at yet, and I want to work with him. Do you have any type of coaching or consultations or anything like that?
Absolutely, I do. I do one-on-one coaching for custody cases. I help people get ready for family court services. If you've got that in your community, I work with attorneys and clients to help them with managing and strategically setting them up to have more successful cases as well.
And how do they reach out? You want them to just go to the website or email or phone, or what's the best way for them to reach out, raise their hand, and say, I need some help?
They can email me. My direct email is brooke@highconflict.net. That's BROOK at highconflict, HIGH, conflict.net.
Perfect. That's everything everybody would need to get some help, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Brooke.